Healing Overflow. It's Dr. Toy. How y'all doing out there? So good to see you. Welcome back. Let's just get the job done here. Like our Facebook page, Healing Overflow with Dr. Toy. Email me at drtoyjones@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter at Prof. Toya Jones, and like our page, WXCN Power Radio. I'm so excited today, y'all. I have a new friend all the way from Kenya, and I am going to skip all of the formal introductions and have her introduce herself and talk about herself. But y'all, before y'all came in, we were having such an authentic sister girl conversation, and I said, I got to get this so that the viewers can hear. So please put your hands together, your verbal, your imaginary hands together for my guest all the way from Nairobi, Kenya, Dr. Teresia Mutavi. And please let me know if I pronounce your last name right, because I've been messing it up and trying to practice.
You've done well. You've done well.
Y'all, before we came on, we were talking about the weather, and I thought all of my folks from, this side of, we're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania here. So all of my viewers that are in, the whole region from New York to all the way down, y'all, those cool Chicago, all those cool states. My friend Teresia said it's cold in Kenya right now. So we were taking our phones trying to figure out what the temperature is. And so Dr. Mutavi, tell us what the temperature is in Kenya right now.
It's 19 Celsius and it's very cold according to us.
So y'all, that's about 66 degrees. I said, well, that's a nice day. She couldn't believe that it gets below 0 Celsius for us. And so we get below 0 Fahrenheit, which is super, super cold. In Pittsburgh, we get ice storms, snowstorms. So I told her, visit me in the summer if she wants to survive.
Yeah, because we are not yet used to that ice cold. Even though in Kenya, there's a place called Limuru, which is cold. But here in Nairobi town city, 19 is cold for us.
So are y'all, look, y'all, when I visited, everybody had on like winter hats and winter coats, and it was really warm to me. So y'all, the temperature in Fahrenheit was probably about in the 70s in the morning, maybe 60s, high 60s and 70s, and then it would reach to maybe 80, 82. So the temperature was just beautiful all day to me. Sunny, barely any rain. It was so gorgeous. I've never seen such a gorgeous country. Just green everywhere, blue skies all the time. But listen, y'all had on coats and hats.
And you're welcome to visit another time.
It was perfect weather to me. I don't know if I could visit y'all in the summer. I might be too hot.
Slightly hot.
Nice. Yeah, it was sunny and hot. I loved it. It was my first time visiting Africa, any country in Africa. And it had been, just a lifelong dream to do that, because I learned so much, as an American. As an African American, I learned so much about Africa, because this is where my ancestors came from. This is where, my ancestors were stolen from Africa, the continent, and taken to America. And that's where we began our history. And so for a lot of us Black Americans, it's a confusing limbo. It's like we don't belong. We don't know where we are. We don't know where our ancestors come from. And so to be able to visit Africa and say, wow, like I still don't know where my ancestors came from, but I know they came from the continent of Africa. And to meet all of you beautiful brown-faced people, it was just a wonderful experience. And I'm glad I got to do it in Uganda and Kenya. So I was there for 2.5 weeks, as my viewers know. And I didn't, listen, y'all, I got to tell you this story. I didn't meet Dr. Teresia. We have never met in person. So one of my goals were to go to Africa and to meet a trauma therapist and a trauma specialist, and also to meet a professor in therapy, like in any type, psychology or social work. And so I got to visit some, I mean, just astute universities in Uganda and Kenya, and Nairobi University was one of the probably the most impressive universities. It was very prestigious, and I got to meet a lot of faculty from there, the dean and everything. And I did leave a little spot that I didn't get an opportunity to meet a trauma therapist. That is who I am. And viewers, you all know my Healing Overflow family, y'all know all I talk about is trauma and healing from trauma, especially Black and Brown people here in America. And so I was like, oh, well, I went back to Nairobi airport, had all my bags, and we were waiting for my flight. And I knew, I had that little part of me said I didn't get to meet a trauma therapist or a trauma specialist, but maybe next time. So I go into the restroom, y'all, true story. And I always wear my Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania t-shirt. So I had my Steeler Pittsburgh t-shirt on, and I heard someone say, "Yay, Pittsburgh." I said, "Who?" And they didn't have an African accent. I said, "Somebody from America." And I look up and I don't know her. And she's like, "My brother goes to Pitt." And I was like, "What?" And what is the coincidence, y'all, that her brother goes to Pitt and I'm a professor at Pitt? I said, "What? I'm a professor at Pitt." And she says, "What? My aunt is a professor at Nairobi University." And I just wanted to fall out on the floor. Like, what do you mean? I just came from Nairobi University that morning, and I went straight from there to the airport. So I was just blown away. And I was like, "Tell me about your aunt." And she's like, "Well, she's a therapist and she helps trauma survivors." And I could not believe what I was hearing. I was like, "Please give her my phone number. I want to talk to her so bad." This is what I wanted to learn. Like, how do Africans treat trauma versus how we, Black Americans treat trauma? And as a trauma therapist and as a professor, I try to teach, white folk in the classroom, because that's what we mostly have in our classroom. How do you interact with Black people, and how do you treat trauma, culturally aware trauma here in America? And I wanted to just meet this Dr. Teresia and ask her these questions. So I'm going to give you the floor to just talk about who you are, what you do. After that, y'all, we just talked on Zoom and texting and WhatsApp, and we hit it off like we know each other forever. So I'm so happy you're here. And I just want you to talk about, like, what do you do? Introduce yourself to the audience, and then talk about, like, what kind of issues you see in clients. Like, you are a therapist and you see clients on a regular. So you go ahead. I'll stop talking.
Okay. Thank you for introducing me, Dr. Toya. I'm Dr. Teresia Mutavi, and I am a psychiatric social worker, and I'm also a counselor, a trained counselor. And I am a lecturer at the University of Nairobi in the Department of Psychiatry, School of Medicine, Faculty of Health Science. So I teach both medical students. I teach clinical psychologists, and I also teach those who are doing postgraduate diploma in psychiatric social work. So that's what we teach. And we also teach pharmacy students. And basically, I teach on behavioral science, the social aspects of illness to medical students. That's my regular work. But in my practice, I am a counselor, and I practice counseling, and I provide therapy to children. I work for an organization called International Justice Mission as their consultant. And there I am a counselor. I for a very long time, I've been seeing children who have been sexually abused. I think since 2013, and sometime 2 years ago, they kind of shifted focus on their programs, and now we've been seeing trauma survivors, especially those who have lost a loved one or have gone through police brutality, extrajudicial killing of their family member. So, and also to add, in my PhD, I specialized on sexual violence on children. I wanted to understand on trauma in children and how best do we help these children, and does really therapy help them? Yes.
Yeah, that I remember us having a conversation just about the police brutality, and they heard all the way in Africa about George Floyd and what happened, and that was just an extreme version of police brutality. And Dr. Teresa and I talked about what police brutality looks like there, and we talked about how and viewers, you remember I said, as we crossed the border from Uganda to Kenya, we were, I called it the shakedown. We were stopped about 4 or 5 times by police and military, and then asked for money, or not really asked, demanded money, to carry on. And so, Dr. Teresa, can you just go into like what police brutality looks like in Kenya for you all? And it differs a little bit, but we have police brutality too, but I just want to hear what some things you encounter there.
So police brutality here in Kenya will appear like when a police uses excess force to someone who is not armed. Sometimes you've had cases police shooting a person when they're in their custody. We've had cases where police just shoot because they have the firearm and the other person is not armed. They just shoot. We like in last year we had a case where a police shot 2 brothers who had just closed their shop, their business, and they were going home, and the police just shot them. So
wow.
That is some of the police brutality that we've seen in our country.
Wow. Yeah, we have a big share of that, and a lot of the times most of the times it's white police officers killing black unarmed citizens, and they're being pulled over for whatever reason, and that person is complying, and it doesn't matter, they get shot anyway, and it's really, really something that here in America, we across the nation, from state to state, it really overflowed when George Floyd was killed, and the protest was just so overwhelming because we're just tired of it, But it was really interesting for me to hear that police brutality, went on in Kenya as well, and how you treat that, with your families. Then you talked about sex assault in helping children. So I'm a child therapist as well, and that's what we had in common. And we got excited about doing family therapy and child therapy. And so I'm wondering, like, what type of like PTSD symptoms do you see in your children and in your families? And then how do you go about treating that?
So most of the time you find that with children, PTSD is you may find that there's a lot of somatization. With children, you find that sometimes they reenact the trauma in play. So re-experiencing loss of sleep, anxiety, crying. So with the smaller children, sometimes you may find them being moody, crying all the time. So it's for you as a parent to find out and bring the child to the hospital. So that those are some of the symptoms you may find with the younger children, but with the older children, you may find hyperarousal, being the children or adolescent may be hypervigilant. And as well as from my study, when I did my study on sexual violence, I realized that even children are affected in their school performance, declining educational performance is one sign that there's something wrong that is happening this particular child. I also found that self-esteem is also affected of a child who has gone through sexual violence, because this trauma is a trauma that is associated with shame. And there's a lot of secrecy, and you find that when it happens, even within a family, people want to hide. They would not want to come out to share what has happened. So the self-esteem of the child is really affected, and the symptoms: lack of sleep, crying all the time, reenactment of the trauma in their place. Yeah, so those are some of the symptoms that I have seen. Even numbing of emotions is I've come across children who numb their emotions. They're not able to. They've numbed their emotions after the trauma.
Yeah, so a lot of things you're saying just sounds so familiar, to me as a trauma child therapist. By the way, viewers, I put Dr. Teresia's information. If you want to read more about her study, it's down scrolling on the bottom of the screen. It's fascinating, and it's a wonderful piece. So please dig into that. But yeah, we see a lot with children that, the same thing as far as concentrating and hyper aroused. You mentioned just being very overactive or hyper aware of every sound and every movement, because they have been hurt. But you really talked about the shame. And I'm wondering, just in the African culture, what that is like for an African child, because I notice when I visit your country that there's a lot of pride in family, and a lot of shame if you bring any type of negative light upon your family. So if you could just talk about, that for a minute, like why is the child feeling so shameful, and why is that so more impactful in, the African culture?
I think the majority of children feel a lot of shame because of the trauma, the sexual abuse itself, and especially when it happens within the family, because we have had cases where the child is sexually abused by their own biological father.
Wow.
So you find that even going to hospital to say, this is my father who did this. So they would want to hide. They would not want to come out to share what really happened. And I remember in one case that I was handling, the child was brought, this was a Form 2 girl. She was around 16 years. And she was brought to hospital because she attempted suicide. So when she came to the hospital, we were treating a suicide. So she was resuscitated and all that.
Wow.
So during counseling, that's when this guy told me, actually, my dad has been sexually abusing me. And every time my mom hides. So you see, they didn't come as sexual abuse. It came as a suicide in the hospital. And even during, the mother never revealed to me that what had happened to this particular child. So that kind of shame is what really makes them to hide.
Right. And that shame brought them to the point where, they tried to kill themselves. Like that is, that is such a deep shame. And even mom, felt so ashamed that she hid instead of helping her child. Like that is a lot of weight on the two of them. Wow, that's super heavy. Um, what what do you do? Like, what's your approach to helping a child? Because a child is going to feel so ashamed and not want to say that my dad did this, or somebody from my uncle or someone from the family did this. I know from visiting Uganda and Kenya that it's very predominantly a Christian faith countries, and keeping yourself pure and keeping yourself until marriage sexually is something that I learned. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I learned once when I was there. And so to have your virginity taken away in such a violent manner, that could bring like even so much more shame on a child, to the point where it pushes them to want to kill themselves. How do you get a child to talk about what happened, and how do you help them and help the family? How do you get through all of that shame?
Yeah, so basically when we are doing therapy for the child, we use the trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. And when we are using the trauma TFCBT, we also incorporate art and play therapy. And then as a therapist, you need to have those the basics, unconditional positive regard, being genuine, such that even the client, when they come to you, then they feel secure sharing with you what they are going through. So we use trauma as cognitive behavioral therapy, but with children, we combine it with art and play therapy, which for me I've seen it work miraculously for these children.
So I'm just mind blown, because trauma focused CBT. So y'all, that's trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy, was created right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I don't know if you even know that, Dr. Teresia. Right. And so the founders of trauma focused CBT, I first got my training from them here at what was it called? Wait, it's I'll get it in a second. It's leaving my mind. But the founders here, and it's through Allegheny General Hospital. And so that blew my mind when you said that you use trauma focused CBT. It's definitely evidence based, and I know you use just regular adult CBT as well. But you talked about play therapy, and what was the other therapy model that you said?
Art therapy.
ACT?
Yes.
What is that?
Art therapy is where you involve the child in coloring, in drawing, and in
art.
that way.
Okay.
Yes, art.
The accent is beautiful, but I couldn't tell what art therapy, art and play therapy. Yeah. So Dr. Teresia, that is what I use too. And that is so cool to hear this. Definitely trauma focused CBT, art therapy, play therapy, all of those things. So here's the thing, viewers. Healing Overflow family. I asked Dr. Teresia because this is something that we teach in the University of Pittsburgh. I teach cognitive behavioral therapy as a professor, and I teach trauma focused CBT as well. But one thing that differs is because Dr. Teresia, you're a Kenyan, you're in Africa, and so you don't have to teach, how do you approach your client and be culturally aware, and you don't have to do all that stuff. That's something that we have to do. And so one thing that I've just been so curious about is, what do you do? Like, what do you incorporate any type of African tradition? What do you do that's probably natural to you, but not to us? And we have to teach our clinicians. So we just want to get a bite of, you're using these methods that we use, in Western culture and in America, but there's something more that you're doing that naturally, because you're African. So can you even put your finger on that and just kind of tell us, like what do you do to help, a client to feel comfortable? Or do you incorporate any African tradition, or do they already have, some methods using like African culture? So you answer all those questions.
Okay, maybe what I can say on that is that Africans are naturally welcoming. So I think what we use that I would say it's more okay. I don't know whether it's modern or African. Is that makes the client feel very comfortable when they come to the therapy room, and engage them in their level. And at times you are forced to counsel them using the language that they understand. Yeah.
Okay. And then how do you make them feel comfortable? Because one thing that I learned is here in America, Black folk don't really like to go to therapy. They like to, go to the pastor or go to their family or something like that, and they try to heal themselves before they go to therapy. And you and I were talking about that off camera. Just let the viewers know a little bit more about what we were talking about with traditional healers and religion and things like that.
Okay. So, but that one is more common in mental health. Now, these other disorders, rather than children who have gone through sexual abuse. So you find that in people with mental disorders, these other mental disorders, schizophrenia, mood disorders, anxiety disorders, they believe it's like witchcraft, or someone has bewitched you, or evil spirits. So you may find them visiting traditional healer before they coming to see you. Yeah, it's
Okay. Yeah. And so what do traditional healers do? And is it helpful?
I don't know much because I've never visited any. I know what I know is there's a time I was working before I joined the university, I was working in hospitals. I was a social worker in the hospitals, and I was dealing with so many mental patients. And from that experience, that's when I found out that for every patient who comes to the hospital, either they will pass through a traditional healer, or they'll come to the modern medicine, get the modern medicine, but then they'll still go get that concoction from the divine healers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So by the time they get to you, are they better off, worse off, the same?
Yeah. Now you find that now they are mixing.
Mhm.
So, but not all of them. It's just because you find that traditionally Africans have their way of treating illnesses when they occur within the community, and that has been their way of life.
Wow.
So, with
Yeah.
now modernity, it has now brought in modern hospitals, and people have to go for modern treatment and all that. Not all patients who mix, but the majority of those who come from the rural areas, who come from the villages,
Mm-hmm.
do that. But for the people who are educated and who understand science, then they use modern medicine.
Got it. Okay. One thing you said that is so natural for you is you just make them feel comfortable. And so I just want to dig into that a little bit more, because one thing that I learned when I was talking to Mama Teresa from Uganda, she is a woman who is in Entebbe, and she helps really to heal children that were left abandoned. And I talked to her about that, and I talked to her about how she helped just helped burn victims, acid burn victims heal. And one thing she talked about is bringing another burn victim to talk to that woman, or to talk to her and make her feel comfortable. But it was something so natural to her, and you said it so natural to you. And if you can believe it, it's not so natural here in America just to make them feel comfortable because of the race difference. And so y'all don't have race differences like that. We have black and white, and they're very two different cultures, especially in Pittsburgh. There's a lot of black and white. And then as you move throughout the states, you might get a lot of Latinx community. And then you definitely get African and Jamaican and things like that. But specifically when we train our therapists, we talk about making them feel comfortable because it's hard for Black people to come to therapy. Tell me what you do. It might be so basic to you, but it's really going to, open our mind as we listen to you. Like, what do you do to make your clients feel comfortable and be ready to receive, counseling?
Yeah. Most of the time you find that they may not come directly. They come most of the time as a referral. You see, like now where I work for International Justice Mission, the clients, they come to me as a referral. Yes. So even, and even I remember when I was working in the hospital, then a patient will be referred by the doctor or the clinician for counseling. And then now when they come to you, you psychoeducate them, the importance of the therapy, for them to understand that actually this is going to help me heal.
Okay. And then I remember you saying that, you don't have to get past the skin color. That's not an issue for you as, Kenyans and Africans. But there is a feeling of like economic status, like you have this more important job, or you're this therapist, this more important person, and then I'm this other person, and I feel like not as worthy or not as important. So talk a little bit about that. I don't know if you remember us talking about that, but how do you make that person feel more comfortable, like you're not so above their level and they can talk to you?
Yes, just using the skills of counseling, and also mostly the clients that I see, I never get the opportunity to ask them for money because they are referred from an organization. So, but then you find that gap feeling, you are working, I am struggling, you can feel the gap. But what I do most of the time is trying to get to their level and become friendly with empathy, so that they feel that I genuinely care for them, and I'm there for the therapy. Those are some of the skills that I use.
That's wonderful. And they feel, and I know by talking to you, I feel super comfortable with you every time. And like we already knew each other. And that's really, really important. And I just think that's something that you do naturally. And that's something that we have to teach a lot of the times. And I just thought that was so mind blowing, just to help somebody feel at home and welcomed. I felt so welcome. I cannot even explain how welcome I felt in Kenya, where everywhere I went, I was greeted with, "You're welcome. You're so welcome. You're so welcome," to be here. Served all the time, something to eat and something to drink. And I love that tea, whatever, that lemongrass tea with ginger and honey. It was so delicious. I tried to recreate it. I can't. I got to get back to Kenya to drink that tea.
The one which is called dawa. You drank the one which is called dawa.
It's called dawa?
Yeah, where they mix ginger, and then we put lemon, and then we put honey.
Y'all, Healing Overflow family, y'all have never tasted anything like this. It healed every ailment in my body. It tastes so delicious. But it was such a welcoming family feeling. And people invited me back, like never met me, didn't know me, and said, "Please come back and you can stay in my home." And that's not regular. Like that is the African culture. And I fell in love with that. I thought that was so beautiful. Hugs and just, feeling like we were family and that we were welcome there. That's something that you do, Dr. Teresia. You do it naturally, and that's your culture. And I just wanted the viewers to hear that and to know that's what we miss a lot of the times, and even in therapy. So you're always making people feel invited and welcome. Then they can open up and tell you all of these things that happen to them, and you can help to heal them through that. I just thought that was beautiful. And your culture is so wonderful, and your country is gorgeous. So I have to come back so one day when my family will let me be out the country that long again.
You're welcome. You're most welcome. Kenya people are very welcoming, and yeah, they are very welcoming,
Yes.
and we love guests.
Yes, y'all do. Y'all treated me like a queen. And I love the pride in Kenya. You all are so intelligent, and you aren't bashful about it. Like, yes, we are the city of champions. We are, we are champions. And there were flags I saw, and just the campus, and everything was super clean to me. And there's so much pride in education and pride in the people. And it was just this confidence and pride that I saw in Kenyans and Africans, period. That's something that we strive to continue to grow as far as Black Americans. And so that was something I really took back too, that it was like, look at y'all, they're so intelligent and they're so full of pride and they have great reason to be, So I also wanted to show the viewers before we go, I did so much shopping in your country, Teresa. I bought everything. So these African print earrings, but I didn't buy these in Kenya. I bought these in America. But I bought these in Kenya.
Beads, the beads.
All this beaded work is really
Maasai.
Maasai. That's right. This is where I bought from the Maasai women when I went to the safari. There were lots of women out there. Look, I just bought everything. I bought everything. And my viewers know I am such an earring fanatic that I just bought I think I spent all my money buying a bunch of earrings and bracelets, and I had such a beautiful time. And thank you, although we didn't get to meet personally, we're going to meet, and I cannot wait for that day. But your people were so welcoming, and I felt at home, totally at home. So thank you to the beautiful country of Kenya. Thank you, Dr. Teresa Mutavi, all the way from the University of Nairobi and all the way from the trauma therapist chair. Thank you so much for being a guest and just sharing everything with me and sharing everything with the Healing Overflow viewers. Is there any final words that you want to say before we say goodbye?
And I would say thank you so much for hosting me, and it has been a pleasure to get to know you. And at least now I look forward for us collaborating and working together and learning from each other.
Absolutely. So yes, you're so very welcome. Absolutely. Y'all, I got friends all the way around the world. So what? I got friends in Kenya, y'all.
You're welcome.
All right, y'all. I will see you next week. Don't forget to like my Facebook page, Healing Overflow with Dr. Toy. Email me, please. Give me comments down below how you felt about this show. Any questions you have for my friend, Dr. Teresa, we can get that to her. Like WXC Empower Radio and follow me on Twitter. Stay tuned, y'all, because TikTok is coming. I am going to keep it a secret, but I'm going to let y'all know. Just watch out for me on TikTok. I'm going to have some really helpful hints that are coming from the therapist chair. So get ready for that and keep on watching Healing Overflow. Love y'all. Keep on healing so that your healing overflows onto everyone around you so we can heal our community, our family, and our friends. Be blessed, y'all. See you next week.